And welcome everybody to the Huddle. It's KGUN9's weekly streaming sports talk show. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris as always on Tuesday afternoon. Pat, good afternoon. How are you today?
Doing pretty well, Jason. Excited. We always talk about the crossover, crossing over each other, but really gets underway tonight with Arizona men's basketball, and of course, we're right in the middle of Arizona football season, and a lot of fun.
Got everything: hockey, World Series,
Yep.
you name it. We'll start with the men's basketball team as we come on the air with you here today. They've got a preseason game. They're only won tonight against Western Oregon, and they're going to be playing the game with Courtney Ramey, who is going to be their starting guard in the backcourt along with Kirk Risa, most likely this season. But he's not going to be playing in the first three games. We learned last night that he's going to be suspended for those first three games, and I'm going to read you off right now what those games are. And it's going to be Nicholls State, Southern U, and Dixie State. So, Pat, these are not games that are going to hurt Arizona as far as the win-loss column, but doesn't really help as far as the chemistry and getting things going off to a good start. By the way, the reason he's suspended by the NCAA is because he took part in the Portsmouth Invitational, which was a little gray area. It's really for seniors who have exhausted their eligibility. He tested the NBA draft waters with the opportunity of coming back, decided to come back, and was unsure about the whole thing because he thought he had an extra year of eligibility.
Yeah, and he's a graduate. He's a graduate fifth-year player for the U of A.
Texas last year.
Yeah, and so he looked at it as, I'm going to test the waters. He probably got some bad advice to play in the Portsmouth Invitational. Regardless, it's a 3-game suspension. I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot. The most important thing is he's going to be back in time for the Maui Invitational, so he'll get to play in the Maui Invitational against the likes of Cincinnati and on down the line. So that's where they really need him, Jason. And he gets to play in the exhibition game tonight. So no harm, no foul. Guys make mistakes. His only thing he was trying to do is see if anybody thought he was good enough to go in the NBA draft. That might happen in a later time, and after being at the University of Arizona, who knows? But right now, he's got 1 season of eligibility, and he'll miss 3 games.
And when you put this into context of previous suspensions for Arizona basketball players, it's really nothing. I mean, just go back 2 years. We had a situation right before the season. It was Kirk Risa. He's not eligible. When is he going to be eligible? We don't know. It was open-ended, okay? Yeah. Then we had the whole mess 5 or 6 years ago with Alonzo Trier.
Yeah,
Alonzo Trier, that would take up a whole documentary of what happened with him, right? So that we didn't even know the reason. Not only did we not know when he could return, we didn't even know the reason. Here we know the reason. We know when he's going to return. We know what he's going to miss. We know it's not going to be not that bad. We know probably who's going to play in his spot here. Cedric Henderson Jr., maybe Adama Ball a little bit too. In the grand scheme of things, if there's like there's one big issue before the season starts every year. If this is the issue, I think an Arizona basketball fan would sign for it.
And you mentioned a couple of names, and the one that intrigues me is Adama Ball. And I'm maybe he gets a little bit more playing time. Maybe he finds his legs, and suddenly, not that he's going to be the starter, because I think he's probably the guy you really want to come off the bench first to that guard position. But maybe he gets even more playing time, and he gets in a rhythm too, and he shows us that he's ready to make that next step. It's not a big deal. It's hardly worth a footnote to the season, we hope. But I don't anticipate it being much of a deal.
Yeah, comment here from Sono Efernado. The Wildcats will play without him. Bear down. He'll be back for when it counts. You know what? I'll tell you about this game tonight, Pat. Western Oregon. Does this make a difference? Does it matter how good they look tonight? A little bit. Here's why. This is when we knew last year, right off the bat, when we were going into the year and saying 21-9, battle for a bubble team and that whole thing, it was right away, Pat, that we were like, wait a second. You can just tell these guys are running their opponents right out of the gym. Doesn't matter who the opponent is. So I think it does matter how they look tonight.
I think it matters how this these games leading up to the Maui Invitational look as a whole. One game, maybe not so much, but you're right. I mean, you're clearly, on paper, you have way better athletes. You should show that you have way better athletes. You should show you have way better system in place. And, You're exactly right about last year. That was something that I don't think any of us anticipated, was how dominant they were in those first 10 games. And suddenly we began to have a new appreciation for what Tommy Lloyd was able to get them to do and to buy in and all that kind of stuff. And it worked out, obviously, with a number 1 seed, number 2 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. We'll have to see how it all shakes out this year. But I think expectation levels certainly start a little higher this year than last year, even with 3 guys going into the NBA, out of the draft that were star players last year.
You want to see how Umar Ballo looks in a starting role. He's going to get a start tonight. You want to see, you still have a little bit of a bitter taste from Azuolas Tubelis in March Madness. I know it's last year. I know a new year is a new year, but I've got a bitter taste from what happened in those games in March of how Tubelis performed. And you got to also, you're seeing Kirk Kriisa healthy. He was not 100% in March either. So those are a couple of things I think to look for in a preseason game tonight.
Yeah, and Azuolas Tubelis is interesting. There's a young man who obviously has a passion for the game, and he has a great knowledge of the game, and he's learning with Tommy Lloyd, and he's getting better and better. And we saw him make improvement last year as well. But you're right. When it came to crunch time, it turns out he might have had a little bit of an injury, but it just wasn't meant to be for him when we got to the postseason. And that has to be kind of grating at him a little bit, and he's got some things to prove. And he's not the most outspoken, not the most demonstrative guy. He's not like some of the players that we see that that are fan favorites. But certainly fans like Azuolas Tubelis, they understand what a great athlete he is and what a great performer he can be. And you're pulling for a guy like that, at least I am, and hoping that he can find that little something that wasn't quite there at the end of last year, and he shows it this season.
Whether it's confidence or what, you want to see that fixed and not be a problem right away.
Did you see? Didn't mean to interrupt. This just came down about Bill Walton, and I got it off ESPN.
Yeah.
Bill Walton I think it's worth mentioning that Bill Walton, who hadn't talked for 4 months, Jason, after the announcement of the defection of USC and UCLA, his alma mater, to the Big Ten, he hadn't said anything, but he had a statement today to an Oregon columnist. He finally spoke through a statement that he wrote. It was typical. Bill Walton speak, but in essence, basically what he was saying is that he is.
I got right here, Pat. I was sending the graphics request.
Oh, good.
For live shot. So I'll read it to you right here. I got it right here.
Yeah.
I got the best parts of it. I don't believe that joining the Big Ten is in the best interest of UCLA, its students, its athletes, its alumni, its fans, the rest of the UC system, the state of California, or the world at large. That's him with the world at large.
The world at large.
And then the other part I picked out, my hope and dream is that this proposed move by UCLA, my alma mater, will be rescinded.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And there's a little bit of talk within the University of California system, from the governor of California, from lots of politicians in California that are opposed to this. They're hopeful that maybe they can find a way to rescind this decision. I'm not so sure that's going to happen, but you would be hard pressed to find UCLA fans, UCLA alumni that are really in favor of this move. And I think he cited things like, and you've talked about this before, it's the travel, it's the expense of the travel, it's the grind on the players, and the lack of classroom time for we're not just talking basketball, football, men's and women's basketball and football. We're talking about all of the Olympic sports, men's and women's, that suddenly their travel budget quadruples, and their time away from class doubles and triples because of the length of the travel. So there's a lot of people not happy, and Bill Walton finally breaks the silence today.
I hope their record suffers too, with these weekends. These are going to NBA type of schedule. You got a weekend, and they're not going to play at Rutgers every year, right? But you got a week across the country. But you're going to have a weekend of at Michigan State, right? At Wisconsin, at Iowa. These basketball weekends. These are going to be tough trips. I think it's going to be much tougher for this football and basketball team. It just feels and smells like greed. It really does. And I hope it doesn't work out. I don't mean to be bitter. And good to see Bill Walton speak his mind, because the last few years, everything's been positive. and good to see him actually say something. You know, he was going to get asked about it at one point, so you know he's going to come up with a statement. But I was glad to see that from Bill Walton, who I happen to be a big fan of listening to his games. His
You and
broadcast.
you and I are probably in the minority because we both actually like Bill Walton. Some of his antics, I get it. I understand why some people, but when he actually analyzes games and he knows the players, he knows the game. I like that aspect of him. And I agree.
I don't think we're in such a minority. I think it's tough for some of the play-by-play guys who work with them. I think Dave Pash makes it a little bit more contentious than it needs to be. There's another guy whose name I'm skipping my mind right now, who I think kind of works with him a little, Roxy Bernstein, who I think kind of works with him a little bit better and kind of plays with him. If I was doing play-by-play with him, I'd just go with it. Just go with it.
Yeah, I would
and if he goes too far, that's kind of on him. But don't make it contentious. Just go with it. And yes, if you need to take over at a big moment, take over. But if it's a 13-point game early, for a minute in the second, late in the second, early in the second half or whatever, you can let him do his thing for a minute. So I think there's a lot of Bill Walton fans out there, or he wouldn't be doing those games. Go ahead.
No,
Pat.
I think there are. There's a buzz sometimes. People like to get on him if he says something or does something. But I think that this shows you that Bill Walton has the athlete in mind first. He has the fan base in mind. He understands that this is not the right move for UCLA, and it's not the right move for the Pac-12. And I think
USC.
And he put all that ahead of what he might be thinking of. Hey, I'm a UCLA alumni. They got a chance to go on and show themselves nationally again, and maybe win a Big Ten title and be on a bigger stage because they'll get more. But that's not the way he feels. I think that his sentiments are very much like you and I have talked about.
In the spirit of Bill Walton, this is the greatest sports talk show in the history of sports talk shows. That's what he says, right? That was the greatest block in the history of Oregon basketball. He's Pat Parris. I'm Jason Barr. This is the Huddle, KGUT9's weekly sports talk show. We'll transition from that to U of A football. Same old story. I'm sorry. Same old story with the defense. Instead of giving up 49 points, they gave up 45 points. Whatever. They actually gave up more yards, I think, over 600 yards. This is a defense. I don't see it getting any better. They've now lost 3 in a row, 0-3 on this 5-game tough stretch. The tough middle part of the schedule of the 5. They were going to be ranked teams until Washington lost. They're now 0-3. They've got to come up with a win here at either at UCLA, at Utah, or at UCLA to give them a chance to possibly be 4-6. Going into Washington State, going into ASU, to give them a shot at maybe a bowl game. But at this point, I don't think this defense deserves to be in a bowl game. This defense is not good. It's bad. It's taken a step backward. They've got players on this defense. Some of these guys can play, unless maybe we're just overrating them. But some of these guys, Christian Roland Wallace, Keon Bars, these guys look like good athletes. I don't know why they can't stop anybody, Pat, but it's the same deal. It's just the defense is just not getting it done.
No, they're not. And of those 4 losses you're talking about, when you look at the last 5 games, they've lost 4 of the last 5. The only win was Colorado, right? Mm-hmm. So they started at Cal. They lost that game. They won at Colorado versus Colorado. Then they lost Oregon, Washington, USC. So this is that middle part of the schedule you talked that was so tough. In those 4 losses, they gave up 49, 49, 49, and 45. They had 0 sacks in those 4 losses and 0 turnovers in those 4 losses. There's a theme there, Jason, and it's not good. Having said all that, I think sometimes you have to step back a little bit. And I found myself on Saturday night frustrated, and I'm not going to do the, hey, we won the 3rd quarter, or hey, we scored and we were only down 8. At one point we were only down, 4. And that got us excited. As fans, we were there, we were rooting them on. But at one point when it was clear they weren't going to win, when they got down, 16, they ended up getting scoring and getting down 8. But when they were down, I started finding myself going, wait a minute, let's step back just a second and say, last year, they struggled to win 1 game under Jed Fish and the team that he had. They've got 3 wins now. There's a potential they can
Yeah,
get to
Pat, the
4,
defense is taking a big
maybe
step
5.
backward. It's
But
taking a big step backward, though.
but here's the thing. Here's the thing. You have to celebrate the little victories. You have to be aware of the and I
Okay,
don't want to
fine,
use
but this is a turn for you because this was not you before. Now you're
because I got
sounding like
tired of
Jed
being
Fish. Before it was not good enough. Now,
I got tired of wasting my energy getting mad at the defense that clearly is subpar and needs to be fixed. And there's nothing you're going to do this. They started 3 freshmen and they played 5 or 6 freshmen during the game. Did it
they
help?
should. They
No,
should. They
no.
should. Yeah.
But they should start freshmen. I applaud that. You can
Let's see what
lose
this
with
price sock guy can do.
yeah, you can lose with the upperclassmen or you can lose with the freshmen. So why not try it? And I applauded that part of it. And that part I was actually pleased to see, even though they didn't perform. They got no turnovers. They got no sacks. They got really no pressure on the quarterback. And when they did, they get a personal foul called on them, which was just ridiculous. But my point is, Jason, I am nobody's more frustrated than I am at losing 4 out of the last 5 and giving up 49, and 45. But they're better. They're better than they were. And you've got to have progress. And as long as you see progress in literally 1 year, then we have hope for next year that they'll make progress again. If they make the progress from year 1 of Jed Fish to year 2, if they make that from year 2 to year 3, then you're talking about a team that will have a chance to go to a bowl game. Right now, they don't have a chance to go to a bowl game. They're not going to get 2 of the. They could get 2 of the next 4. Is that what they have 4? Yeah, 2 of the next 4, but it's highly
3 of the
unlikely.
next 4.
They'll probably get 1 more win. I don't even know if they'll beat ASU this year, and I hate to say that, but ASU's playing better.
That's right.
And so we'll see. Well, I mean, the last 2 games are winnable. We'll see. These next 2 games, they're going to be just as tough as these 4 of the last 5 games that they lost.
Yeah, no, they're going to win 3 of the next 4. It's at UCLA, home against Washington State, home against ASU. So my thinking was win 1 out of the next 2, then you come home 4 and 6 with 2 games against 2 teams that aren't powerhouses, and maybe you find a way to win those 2 games.
Maybe.
And if they ever did that and we're 6 and 6 and went to, I don't care if it's the New Mexico Bowl, okay, or the Arizona Bowl, which is a good bowl game, or anywhere, any type of bowl would be they would be celebrating like you wouldn't believe in that locker room. If they beat ASU to go 6 and 6 and be able to play,
they might want to call the artists to start casting the sculpture of Jed Fish right now if that happens.
Yeah. So yeah. No. Jacob Manu's played really well, and you talked today about how USC didn't recruit him, and now he's trying to show everybody wrong. Well, why didn't USC recruit him? And why didn't USC go after Jacob Manu? Well, I don't know for sure, but I'm going to give you what I think is a pretty good guess. He's 5'11", and sometimes there's a stigma when that linebacker's not 6 feet, right? We saw that a generation ago when Mike Singletary measured 5'11 and a half or whatever it was. And nobody wanted him, right? Like that half inch makes a big difference, right? So anyway, but what happens is they end up with, a Scooby Wright or a Jacob Manu or a player, not that he's going to become Scooby Wright, but a player here and there who's been overlooked, but they've got to do much better in that in recruiting. And Jed Fish did do that. He did do much better than that in recruiting. When he got McMillan and he got Keon Burnett and he got Jacob Cowing from the transfer portal, but now they've got to do that on the defensive side of the ball, and that's not his expertise. And so somebody has got to do that, whether it's Nansen or somebody. He's got to put that incredible sales job on the defensive side of the ball because they need help right away on that.
Which is kind of ironic because you heard him say yesterday, you heard Jed Fish yesterday, that he dressed 3 consecutive Halloweens as Buddy Ryan, the old Eagles coach. And Buddy Ryan was a defensive master, right? But somehow along the way, Jed Fish went to the offensive side of the ball. He didn't stay on the defensive side of the ball. And that's unfortunate.
Well, he wasn't going to be Rich Kotite for Halloween. Rich Kotite was the Eagles offensive coordinator. He could have been John Gruden. John Gruden was the Eagles. John Gruden was the Eagles quarterbacks coach, if I'm not mistaken, in the 1980s. Buddy Ryan was the head coach, and then Kotite became the offensive coordinator early in the late 80s, early 90s. Buddy Ryan was a character.
He sure was.
In Philadelphia. I don't know why Jed Fish wasn't a Giants fan. He grew up right there.
Well, he said that his dad was went to Penn
That's
and
right.
was always was an Eagles fan, so he was an Eagles fan, which makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Got it for sure. All right. Hey, listen, I don't mean to put you on the spot here. I meant to say this to you, and we don't have the video of it, but just curious. By any chance, did you see Ross Chastain's pass at Martinsville?
Yes. You got to explain to people how he
Yeah.
did it. Everybody,
All right,
all the drivers are just
Yeah.
amazed at what he did.
All right, so to let everybody know, and we're not allowed to show the video on our digital platform. I could have brought a picture, I guess, but just to let everybody know, we'll have some fun here. Martinsville Speedway in NASCAR is the oldest and slowest track, so it's shaped like a paperclip. And what's meant by the slowest is it's not banked, so it's flat, right? So you don't really get the banking, and you can't go really fast around it. So that's why it's the slowest track. So in the last lap, Ross Chastain needed to pass like 3 drivers, something like that, or at least get ahead of Denny Hamlin in order to make the final 4 in the standings so he could race for the championship this week at Phoenix. And you're about turn 1 here looking in the last lap, but he's got no chance to do it, right? And so instead of slowing down to turn in turn 2 and turn 3 and to go around the track, he held the throttle wide open, mashed the gas, and went as fast as he could go around the wall of the track and passed these drivers who were, making normal turns, and flew ahead as his car is crashing into a wall, bumped the guy, and finished just ahead of Denny Hamlin, made the move, and is now racing for a championship. I've never seen anything. I've been watching NASCAR for a long time. I have never seen anything like that, Pat.
Did you see he said he learned that in video?
That's right. It was a video game move. So I didn't know. Dangerous. Yes. Yeah, it was.
Yes, it
You're
is.
not going fast enough at Martinsville
Yeah.
where you could really do something bad.
Yeah, and Nicole's right. Dangerous for some tracks, but this track, it's actually genius, I think.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You can't be doing that at a couple of the other speedways. But at this one, it's called a short track. It actually worked, and Denny Hamlin didn't have a problem with it after the race. He's in the championship 4. Good for him. I wouldn't have thought of doing it, but
it worked.
Another way to win. Games. You find a way. You find a way.
And if people get a chance to see it, I mean, he is just scraping that wall, and just his car's just bouncing along the wall, and it's still going faster than everybody else they've got to go slow as they make the corner, and he's just ripping that side of his car right down. And I assume that maybe they'll come back with some kind of rules change. You're not allowed to do that at some point, but there was no rule, and he took advantage of his NASCAR video game experience, and now he's one of the final 4.
We'll see. I don't know what kind of rule they could come up with.
Can't use the wall as an aid to navigate your way around the track. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. That's interesting. Yeah. And I watched the YouTube clip where it's got every single angle of it. And finally did you see that?
And yes, and they had all the drivers' audios going, "What is he doing? What is he doing?"
Yeah. It was almost like the car was out of control. And then you see he really did crash the wall. And it's just going, and for him to be able to maneuver it just right so that the wall didn't stop him, but just kind of kept him going.
Yeah.
Just one of the craziest things you'll ever see in sports. So I thought that was interesting to bring up. And certainly we should also mention the World Series Title 1 now after a rain delay in Philadelphia. It looks like they're going to get some a break in the weather, if not in cold, if not in temperature, or if not in rain and temperature. Let's see what the weather here is in Philadelphia. Have you seen yet?
I haven't looked today. I know that I pointed out to our executive producer, Brooke Long,
67 and clear.
Oh, that's not bad. I pointed out yesterday to our executive producer that the last time that a World Series game was rained out was actually Game 6 of the 2011 World Series in St. Louis, and the Rangers had a 3-2 lead. They rained out Game 6, played it the next night, gave the Cardinals an extra day for their pitching staff. Cardinals rallied to win Game 6 in extra innings, and then they won Game 7, of course, and they won the 2011 World Series. Brooke is our executive producer, is a Rangers fan, and of course, I was working for the St. Louis Cardinals broadcast, so it worked out for me. It didn't work out for her.
Good tidbit. All right. So yeah, 67 degrees, only going down to 59 by 11 o'clock
That's
with
great
60
baseball
with
weather now.
63% humidity.
Yeah.
And then they
No,
go to
that
Houston where it'll be fine with indoors.
with it indoors and
Yeah.
it's Houston, it's gonna be a little warmer there. It would have
Because
been
we're in
warmer anyway.
November,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, but
November
November
1st. Right?
1st, you'll
Yeah.
take that in
Yeah.
Philly. Are you kidding me? You
Yeah.
know that
Yeah.
weather.
For
You
sure.
could
So
you could get snow on November
yeah.
1st.
All right. Before we wrap up, I think that everybody who was watching last week's show wants to know, did you hang out look at you
I
know,
did. I did.
did
I
you
did.
hang out with your best buddy Yogi Roth?
I
I mean,
did.
you guys were really close at last week's show.
Well, we hadn't
You guys got
we
really
hadn't seen
close.
each other in a while. We hadn't seen
Yeah.
each other in a while.
Yeah.
Uh,
Tell
I
everybody
did.
about the quality time that you spent with Yogi Roth and
No, it
before we go,
wasn't.
what you guys talked about. No, I mean, you guys were really close last week, and I think people want to know.
Yeah, and we texted a few more times, and then we ended up meeting down on the field. And I talked to Ted, his broadcast partner, and got to know him a little bit, and talked to Yogi. You got to understand, when Yogi Roth is on the field, people just come by, so you don't get a lot of quality one-on-one time with Yogi Roth. The entire,
Pat, I hope you get some quality one-on-one.
No, I'll get some time later on. We'll meet up for dinner, and we'll do that or something at some point. But yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun to see Yogi. He appreciated his time. He appreciated meeting you. He did.
I didn't meet him. I didn't meet him
on the StreamYard. He met you, and so he appreciated us having him on. He said thank you to you and to me, and so I'm passing that along to you.
Okay, very good. I'm glad. Just wanted to follow up from last week.
And according to you, he's too handsome to have on the show again.
All right. Well, on that note, speaking of handsome, hey, to follow up from a few weeks ago, we were joking that we were going to mention the Tom and Giselle story, and sure enough,
yeah,
it's silly as far as topics. It's not silly as far as what's happening to, two people in their private life. But to follow up on that from a couple of weeks ago, it's just tough. Some people are really able to separate their personal life and their professional life. It can just go one-on-one. But there's been some criticism with him. Oh, how much is this affecting him? He's only thrown one interception the whole year, So what that tells me is it's either not affecting him or that team's just too concerned. The Bucs are just too conservative on offense. But I don't think you're going to see Tampa in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And it would be a shame for Tom Brady to come back out of retirement, out of that mini retirement for one last season and then not to even make the playoffs. But they're not a good football team right now, Jason. Yeah. You're right. He's only thrown one interception, but he's also, I've seen him bounce passes and, things that are not normally.
I saw Mike Evans mistime his jump on a catch. It's like, what?
Yeah, well, no, there's been some bad play from some of his receivers. There's been, they're not necessarily rushing the ball that great either. And when you can't do that, you can't throw the ball and vice versa. And, so there's a lot of things that are going wrong with that Tampa Bay Buccaneers team right now. And it's not all Tom Brady and his divorce right now from Giselle.
For sure. They're a game back of first place and probably what's the weakest division in football. All right. On that note, we're up against the bottom of the hour. So we're going to end it right there. We'll have to leave it there, as they say. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. Thanks everybody for watching the Huddle here on KGUN 9 streaming platforms. We'll see you right back here next Tuesday at the same time. Take care, everybody.